Hey guys, if you're anything like me and, well, a lot of people, you're probably thinking about taking a freshwater boat to saltwater and wondering what sort of damage that's going to do. And not only the saltwater, what sort of damage long-term cruising is going to do to your boat. So this week on Everything You Need to Know, I'm going to take you on a tour of Lady K, who spent 1 year full-time off-grid hardcore cruising 2 hurricanes in the salt water for her first time in her life. Now she's a 40-year-old boat that's lived in freshwater the whole time, and we're going to look at the ins and outs of what you can expect to go wrong with your freshwater boat in salt water. So just finishing up here, I changed the impeller in the old Merc. That's the dinghy motor, and I'm about to head to the club to give you guys that tour of Lady K. And I always say one thing about sailors. They always seem to be interested in sailboats and either airplanes or motorcycles, or both. And I think I'm right. If you're a sailor, you're probably into one of those two things. So my bike is going to make a special guest appearance in this episode because we got to go to the club. So let's get cracking. All right, guys, here we are at Lady K in the water. She's been sailed a few times. She's been run around a few times. The boom is obviously not on yet. You can probably see that, but she's been out on the jib a couple times, and she was in the news when we went up to Chatham because the mast wasn't up. We were able to do that. Anyway, we're going to take a quick look at what saltwater did to this boat. She was a freshwater boat for years and years, decades, and no rust, no sort of issues. 1 year in saltwater, everything changed. The first thing we're going to talk about is obviously going to be stainless steel, and there's a lot of stainless steel going on at the back of this boat, as you can see, to support the solar system. And everything's a mess right now because the boat is more or less a construction site, but I can make my point pretty clearly. When we look at things like this stainless band that runs up to hold the solar panel, you can see how bad that really is. Whereas the U-bolt is just fine. So definitely two different kinds of stainless. On the other hand, this U-bolt on this band, not good. Something else we want to look at for stainless, and different types of steel for that matter, is right here on the propane cylinder. There are stainless U-bolts that hold it, a stainless steel bolt going through, but the band itself isn't stainless. It's a zinc coated sort of just mechanical band that I used. I know it's sloppy, but it worked. It did the job. It's been on there for years. But the U-bolts definitely need to be replaced. The main bolt that holds everything together needs to be replaced, but the zinc-coated band, not really a problem. Seems fine. Some more stainless I want to know are these big stainless U-bolts right here. They're huge. Those I purchased in the Bahamas. They're actually bow hooks for smaller boats, like a tow hook you would mount through the fiberglass hull of the boat. And they held up extremely well, but I think they were about $40 American a piece down in the Bahamas. So, you know, you probably get them for 20 bucks here, but they've held up very, very well. Whereas this one is about to completely let go. But that's been on there since day one. Moving forward, we're going to go inside and have the stairs taken out so that I can show you guys the diesel. I used to get comments on how clean and tidy and beautiful this diesel engine was, but 1 year in saltwater, and I want to show you specifically the motor mounts. I don't know how well you can see them, but they're right here. Those were shiny and beautiful and in perfect condition when I left. The big bolt, the little bolts, the whole mount itself. I have to assume at this point that the rubber inside is probably compromised. Now, luckily, Volvo still sells these mounts. This is a Volvo. It's actually a Perkins if you look at the side of the block, but it's a Volvo MD 2030 3-cylinder diesel, and Volvo still sells those motor mounts because they still use them on all the Beneteaus and stuff that they put this engine in now. So I'm going to replace those two mounts. They're like 150 bucks a piece. A little bit pricey, but, you know, small price to pay to have the engine not fall out or not get a real wiggly. And then its pivot point at the back is the sail drive. So we don't want to put added stress on the sail drive should we break a motor mount. So yeah, those things did not last the salt water of it all. I have a bunch more stuff to show you on this boat that's sort of falling apart because of the salt water. But before we do, I wanted to run you through something new that I've been working on. Sailing isn't my only passion, and I've actually launched a second YouTube channel. I'm going to put a link at the top. And if you are into my channel or like what I have to say or just like to hear me talk, or if you're into really intense strategy-based video games, check out the new channel. It's just me taking an already difficult game, playing it on extremely high difficulty, and just going through kind of reviewing the game. And it's a really cool genre. Some of you might not be into that kind of thing, but a lot of people are. So if you're willing to give it a try, or you want to go check it out, or you just want to help me out, I need subscribers because it's a brand new channel. It has no subscribers right now, but I'm just posting the video today. So if you hit the like button on the video or subscribe would be really, really awesome. But I'm going to produce about a video a week of just the hardest difficulty. I play city building games. I play Microsoft Flight Simulator. I've got the yoke and the quadrant and the pedals and everything. On this week's episode, I'm playing Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2, which is a very, very difficult game to begin with, and it's very high strategy. So anyway, if you want to check it out, I'm going to put the button up there, and I will put a link in the description. Please, if you support the channel, go ahead and subscribe, or at least give it a thumbs up. I'd really, really appreciate that. Something else you might not think about that stainless is not only boat parts, but things you have in your boat, like knives that you might have in your galley. And these are Faberware, and they actually held up quite well. This one's got some rust starting. They're not expensive, they're definitely cheap, but only the big one are really showing signs of wear, and it could probably be cleaned up pretty easily. But everything wears out. Another thing is natural wear and tear. If you're going to be living on your sailboat and using it just constantly, day in and day out, 100% of the time, things that weren't normally going to wear out do wear out more quickly. And if you look at my companionway stairs, it's a great example of that. This screw's head popped off, and now that's wiggly. You can see the wear marks from the stairs hitting the wall. This one's twisted. Everything's just sort of falling apart. So there's a plan in place that I'm going to end up replacing a lot of this stuff and fixing everything, but that's what happens when you live on the boat full time. Okay guys, the next part I'm sort of dreading because it's my least favorite place in Lady K. My locker, my doghouse. So the salt water ruined the steering in this boat. Some of you guys know that. We're going to go have a look. It's going to be kind of dark down there, but I'll let your eyes adjust. Okay, let's see what we can see. Okay, so here's how this works. This is the steering quadrant. I'll move the hose here. This turns back and forth when you turn the wheel, and it turns a post that runs down through the middle to the rudder. However, you don't want water coming up through this post, so there's a rubber boot, and then this is a stuffing box. So it's two plates that sandwich together, and there's a piece of flax cord inside. It's basically a waxed shoelace inside here that gets squished, and it squeezes around that post so the post can still turn back and forth, but water can't get up through there and get into the boat. Well, the salt water actually froze this thing up, and it froze to the stainless steel rudder post that runs down the middle of it. So when you turn the wheel, it would turn the stuffing box. It's not supposed to turn, it's supposed to float freely. It would turn the stuffing box, twisting the rubber hose back and forth, and thus compromising the hose slowly over time. So what had to be done was a tremendous amount of heat, and you can see the teeth marks from the pipe wrenches we had on this thing. Tremendous amount of heat applied to this. Pipe wrenches on here, from down here in this locker, and we got it to free up and start turning, and then ultimately to be able to move up and down, and that was good. We were able to take the whole thing apart, replace the parts that we needed to replace, and put new flux in there. The thing is still good somehow, even though it's all marred up on the outside from all the work that we did to it. But the inside is still good. It slides smoothly on the stainless steel shaft now. But that's something that I didn't think about when I left, was how long is the stuffing box really going to last? On to the next thing. We're back on the wear and tear subject of things. And this boat took a few blows from, you know, the spinnaker pole, or, you know, the this and that. One of which was right here. The spinnaker pole hit here in a gale, and it cracked all the fiberglass in here, and water started to get into the core. So obviously what I did was I ground everything down, right down to the core, and bedded it all with epoxy and fiberglass. And now I'm up to the glazing putty phase, which you can see. There's still a little pit there and a little pit there. So it needs to be sanded probably 1 or 2 more times before a final fix is put in place. And this boat has those injuries literally everywhere. There's more right here around the hatch. See all the stress cracks? There was a lot around the mast, so I've been working on that. And there's actually a lot around the front of the sort of companionway entrance. Hughes has this sort of bubble thing, and look at all the cracks and pits and all kinds of bad things happening. There's one there, one here, one here. So really the plan this summer is to go over this whole boat. Everything topside that needs to be fixed with glass is going to be fixed with glass. Thickened epoxy for any core material that I find that I get to. Even if the core is good, I'm going to gut it and thickened epoxy around where the damage was and repair the whole topside. And by the end of the year, be able to paint the topside with all the imperfections having been fixed. I got to apologize for the mess again as I try to put this boat back together. It's one project after another. Anyway, there's some wood that the boat originally had in my pile of junk over here. Look at this. Now that's primarily water damage with some sun damage. This Lady K thing was made for me by one of you guys, a YouTube viewer from Georgia who owns a wood shop. And he did a really fantastic job, but the sun has just eaten it. Anyway, this was the door behind the steering wheel that hides a little cubby hole that we kept like our fins and snorkels and things like that in. Spinnaker pole has to go back on, no damage there, it's fine. You can see the Rockna. Originally, if you watched from before we left, this was so nice and shiny, and I just took it off like 3 days ago and put the Bruce back on because the Rockna, for the little anchoring that I've been doing here, has been a bit much. So I've got a little Bruce on the bow now that you can see. But if you look at my friend Jay's boat, you can see what color the Rockna is supposed to be, because he just bought one and it's new. It's a little bit smaller, but you get the idea. It's almost stainless. It's actually not. It just that one hasn't been all marred up by use yet. It'll get there, I'm sure, because Jay does a lot of boating. Okay, the last thing on my list, and the thing you've probably all been waiting for, the rigging. And the rigging is a big deal. Mine is not horrible, but this is 1 year in salt, and that one looks really good. A little discoloration here and there. That one's pretty good. Let's see if we have any. I think the starboard side has a little bit more problematic areas. Yeah, you can see it on these ones. You see the rust starting up in there. And that one too. So this boat is due for new rigging. I have no imagination that it'll last very much longer, so that will get done, and that's on the list. One of the expensive things that we have to do. Anyway, guys, that's it for this week's episode. Just taking a look at all the rust and all the different things that are broken on Lady K from being in the saltwater. A lot of the stuff held up really well, and a lot of the stuff did not. Again, if you don't mind, hit up the other YouTube channel that I made, the new one. Give it a thumbs up and a subscribe if you're interested in it. I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys next week.